Lieutenant Governor Scott Bedke, you are back, sir. How are you?
Very well. Very well. It's been a very busy summer. I'm kind of looking forward to the autumn. That's the busy time back at the ranch, the ranch that I call the ranch.
A real
and,
ranch.
So that's a traditional go out and gather the cattle, bringing the calves, bring the cattle in, wean the calves, get them ready to be marketed. Anyway, that's it's a busy time, but it gets us out. We'll be outside every day for probably 40 days, and it's all choreographed. And on this day we do this, and then we leave some buffer in there for weather. Anyway, I'm looking forward to this, to the fall, the autumn on the ranch. It's also the time that we make our political announcements. And as you know, I announced yesterday to run again for lieutenant governor. I'm looking forward to that process. I mean, there are some things that I get fish out of water moments in a campaign, but by and large, it is me and our team traveling the state, interacting with Idahoans who, for the most part, are very engaging, very they're not bashful. They like to talk to their elected officials. They like to straighten them out at times, and I like engaging with Idahoans.
I admire you, sir. I don't know that I would, if I had your job, I'd like engaging with people. Luckily for me, I just hang out in like basements and talk to people one-on-one. So.
Well, you need a reset every now and then,
right.
and our way of life back in Oakley and around the ranch
Sure.
and the farm provides a reset whenever you need one.
Yeah, that makes sense. Speaking of beef, by the way, I got a half beef a few months ago. I think it was mid to late May. We're already through the whole thing. My family has been tearing through beef.
I know where you can get some more of that.
Okay. Well, we'll talk later then. Listen, we're short on time today. Again, you were able to squeeze us in. I really appreciate it. I have a lot of specific questions about policy and spanning different industries, but what I would really like to just hit is, why are you running again? I mean, obviously, the first time we met, you articulated, look, I'm in beef, right? And if you're going to be in beef, you're de facto in politics, because politics affects beef. And that's the way this goes. If you care about how the government and the state and your communities affect your business, you have to be involved in the government and the state and these things. But you've done your piece. I cannot imagine that you make a whole lot of friends being a politician. I've never been one, but you're always, somebody's always going to not be happy. And whether that be from water or from education or from law enforcement or whatever it is, why go at this again?
Well, it's interesting you'd say that about people. There are a lot of solid people out there, and just because we may disagree or have differing opinions, I think the thing that unites us and what keeps me coming back is the love for this place, and we want the best for Idaho. And so, originally it was the cattle industry, on public land grazing, that got me off of the ranch and into the meetings, because Idaho is 67% publicly owned, publicly managed. And so there's always going to be a political component to that. In addition, and to complicate matters, it's the seat of grazing government is on the Potomac River in Washington, D.C. They do not have a clue most times. I mean, there's some kids that go up through the system that are from out here, but most of those people in the land management agencies, whether it's the Bureau of Land Management or the United States Forest Service, don't have generational knowledge of the asset out here that we all commonly hold. And so there's always going to be an outreach component to that. There's always going to be an education component to that. It's very important to me that there be a next generation on the family's cattle operation, and a next one and a next one. And that happens today, laying the groundwork today policy-wise. Similarly, Idaho is a great place, and the foundation, and it's important to me that we leave the place, just like a campground, as well, if not better, than we found it. And so that starts now. That starts laying foundational principles. And I think we've done a great job in Idaho doing that for decades. We've had decades of conservative, but even that to become a buzzword, it's just common sense things that we've done in Idaho, in that we live within the people's means. We don't get too fancy with the regulatory schemes. We did a complete reset on that and started over. We have baked into our Constitution the fact that we will always do rules review. That seems to be a wonky concept, but associated with making laws, then that kicks to the executive branch the ability of each of these state agencies to promulgate rules. And in Idaho, we do a genetic test on those rules against the statute every year. If it gets out of whack, then we reject that rule and start the negotiated rule process over.
So, and I'm sorry to interrupt. So essentially what you're saying is you have baked in, which is, look, we pass laws, but how those laws actually get enacted by individual departments or agencies, that's a different question, because they may interpret the law or engage a rule wrapped around that law that was not the intent or the spirit of the law.
Absolutely. So let's take United States Congress, for example. They don't pass a lot of laws. I mean, they do one or two every year that is an omnibus bill. Think of it as a barge that can only take so many other amendments.
Yeah, right.
And then it can't pass. And so they load up, defense appropriations, or, there's a short list of bills they load up. But for the most part, our interaction as citizens with the federal government is through the rules process, regulations, and they never go back and check them. In Idaho, we check them every year to make sure that the parents that had the kid, so the statute that allowed for the rule to be promulgated, right, that is always synced up, and that the way it's being enforced out on the ground is in concert with and copacetic with the foundational statute,
with the intent, right?
Right, and that is in our Constitution. It wasn't always, but I and others led the cause. I mean, we were doing it, but it was by the judicial fiat, basically. It was challenged one year. There was a 3-2 decision at the Idaho Supreme Court, and then we kept going along for a decade or so, and it worked well, and we were the envy, again. The other policy wonks around the United States looked at the way we were doing it, and we thought to ourselves, this is something we never want to lose as Idaho citizens, the ability to come to my legislator, not only for laws, but for the ways the rules are being enacted. And so it took us 2 tries, but we got that enshrined in our state's Constitution. And I think that quietly keeps Idaho, and will keep Idaho on a very positive trajectory. So, I don't know why we started talking about that.
No.
But it is something. It's a nuanced thing to many, but it is a foundational thing that keeps Idaho, Idaho.
Okay, if I may.
All right.
What you just said, and I was going to ask you this before, you're articulating small things. And again, not small when you stretch them out over a long period of time, but things that people wouldn't really consider as foundational to Idaho staying Idaho, which is something everybody says. And to your earlier point, it's like, look, who even said, like, everybody's conservative. Everybody's trying to out conservative the next person, to the point where it's like, I don't even know what the word means anymore, right? What are other things in your mind that are things that the Idaho government is doing that is keeping Idaho the way Idaho has been? Because for individuals like me that have moved there, this is a really confusing concept. Like, I don't have a gigantic trajectory over multiple decades or generations to understand, okay, this is why it is the way it is.
Well, Matt, you're catching on pretty quickly, I must say, as I listen to your podcast. All right, so when we say we want to keep Idaho, Idaho, yeah, that is in the eye of the beholder, and that means something different to you than it means to me, and it means something completely different. But I think foundationally, it means that we want a small footprint of government in our lives. We want to take care of our environment. We want to maintain the quality of life that comes from living in a natural resource rich state like Idaho. We want to be able to use our resources wisely, but we want there to be, just like a campground, we want to leave it at least as good as we found it. And for the next generation, I think that we're all steeped into the next generation. We want the best for our kids and for our grandkids. And so all of that, so we can go down each one of those paths. But I think all of that put together as what we've been doing quietly for decades here. And we've been laying these foundational pieces, whether it's in infrastructure, whether it's in natural resource policy, whether it's in education policy, transportation policy, etc. We've been quietly laying those foundational blocks, and now we've been discoverers as a state. And so now there's been all of these folks that have moved to Idaho, and who could blame them, frankly? I don't. I welcome them to this loose social construct called Idaho. And now we're stuck with each other, and we got to make it work. And so as we go forward, let's not forget what made it a great state in the first place, the best place to live, to work, and to raise kids that there is. And so we've been doing some things right. Let's build on our successes. Let's not mimic some of the things that we know are failures that happen in other places. And so that means we're going to invest back into ourselves. We're going to invest back into Idaho in infrastructure, not just in water, and I know a little bit about that, but also water systems in suburbia, in town, in the counties, not just out in the agricultural infrastructure, but also back into where we live. That's every bit as important. We've got to invest back into our road system. Just because we're the fastest growing state one of the fastest growing states doesn't mean we're going to get more lane miles. We've got to plan for that. No one wants to spend extra time, in traffic congestion. We want to have our families return safely every time. So and that takes work, and it takes continual investment. And we got to keep up on that. But we also, and my roots are in agriculture, and we raise more stuff than we eat here in Idaho.
Right. And
so we always try to add value to each one of those ag products, whether it's, we don't want to ship out, we do ship out fresh potatoes, but, if we're shipping out French fries and, in processed, we try to process the potatoes. We try, we don't ship out raw sugar beets. We process those into sugar. Similarly with milk, we don't want to have 1 gallon of fluid milk leave the state without adding value to it. Same with the beef and every dairy or every ag commodity. And so we also do that with another commodity that Idaho produces, and that's our kids. We invest back into our kids. It's altogether fitting and proper that we do that into the education system, and then it becomes sticky in the various areas. But that is a concept that resonates clear across the state. We invest back in, we want to add value to the things to our labor, and to the things that we produce, including our kids. So that's why I support this investment back into education. That's why I support the launch program that enhances the job opportunities. For last year, 60% of our kids didn't go on to any type of organized educational thing at all. They went straight into the workforce. If we can add value to what they bring to the workforce, then they get a better job. They get more money. They're able to get into that house quicker, etc. So that's what so this value add is a concept that has made Idaho work, and it's something we need to build on and attract others here. I mean, last year, everybody took a victory lap by removing the income tax on veteran retirement. Why? Because we want to attract that very qualified workforce back to Idaho because there's so many good jobs here. The economy needs it. And similarly, we add value at to the high school graduating seniors for all the same reasons, is because we need an educated workforce, but at the individual level, the more education you have, the better the job, and then you fast forward 30 years, and it makes a huge difference where you start.
Yeah, and your articulation of bringing additional value. I just had a dairyman, small dairyman on from Gooding. This guy, Joey Bingham. Really enjoyed speaking with him. He grew up in dairy. His father was in dairy, and then he left and became a respiratory therapist in the Boise area. And he just realized at some point, he was successful, capable, great career. It's just that this is not for me. So he goes back to Gooding and opens up his own dairy, right? And he's got 400 head of cattle. Now, at this point, he was just producing milk, right? And then, of course, as most dairymen do, ships it off to a processor. And he started engaging in the vertical integration and value add that you're talking about. So then he built a USDA processing plant. And then he was like, okay, so I have the production, I have the processing, but the point of sale, right? Like now I'm just delivering this to somebody else. So he's like, man, I bet I could do this. So he starts making specialty products and gets, essentially a small market that he can sell his specialized dairy products at. So he owns the entire process of this, value add at each point with specialized high quality, like cheese curds. He has these little 12-ounce chuggers that are incredible, like these little glass jars. And I was so blown away by this guy because there's so much value add every step of the way. There's so much, and again, that vertical integration. Don't just sell your raw sugar beets. Like make them into sugar. Process them. Okay, don't just sell the sugar. Let's make them into a product. Stretching the resources of Idaho, be it with children, be it with ag products, be it with our natural resources like our minerals and mining. Right. You and I, the last time we spoke actually was in I think the January-February timeframe about the Speed Council, and I did not know much about the Speed Council or the issues around bureaucratic nature of energy and mineral resources in Idaho. But since then, I've come to understand that Idaho is incredibly rich in all kinds of resources, be they the stibnite mines and Kumo mines and all kinds of different mines. Hard rock mining is a very much American West kind of legacy. But there are so many things standing in the way, including bureaucratic, redundancies like the Speed Council is attempting to address. There are so many things blocking Idaho from actually realizing its own resource, not management. Well, essentially management, because there's too many things stopping it.
Well, I mean, we need to look no farther than, let's take China, for example. Some of our mineral production comes online. They control the market. They dump on the world market the mineral. The prices go down. We have to shutter our plants here in Idaho because it's still you still have to make more than you spend in order for a mine to work anywhere. And so so if we're going to stand on our own 2 feet, as it were, as a nation and as a state, then there's going to be fundamental products that we better not skimp on. It's strategic planning to have a stockpile and domestic production of our strategic minerals, of our energy sources, of our food, everything up and down. Otherwise, we're going to be, when the chips are down, when things get tense, we're going to have to lean on people that do not like us, and we'll be leveraged, for want of a better term, by them if they control the supply. We're at their mercy ultimately. Now, diplomatically, we try to smooth all of that kind of stuff out. But we have shut.
But we all know what it is.
But we all know.
If you have what I need and I can't produce it, then no matter what, we can play nice, but you got me.
That's exactly. And I think that the United States ought to always play nice, but I think we ought to take care of our stuff and be prepared so that we can always be we're always dealing from a position of nice, but also from a position of power. And that I think that adds stability to the world. And so whether it's mineral production, whether it's energy production, the more that we do onshore, the better off we'll be. And that just seems really simple to me. But
listen, again, as I've been
self-sufficiency, state sufficiency, national self-sufficiency, all of that, those are principles that free us up as citizens to not have to worry about other big things.
Yeah. Again, as I've learned more, I've been really blown away by the work that Idaho is doing, especially in sharp contrast to surrounding states. But speaking of that, there is a lot that we can talk about that has been done. But that really begs the question, what is it that you feel like you haven't been able to get to yet? There has been a lot done, but what are you looking for on the horizon?
Well, if you go to my nightstand, you'll see a stack of books that all have bookmarks in them. There's I read several books at a time, and I'll come back and forth. So I kind of think that that's kind of where I am here. We have started and have worked and been successful in multiple areas, but all of the new problems to our state that are incident of rapid, quick growth, none of those have gone away. I have been involved in state government since 2001. I've been right in the middle of much of the stuff that has made us successful up to this point, and I think that I have something to offer as we go forward. Experience, relationships, etc., that we're able to capitalize on. I've got 16 grandkids that live in Idaho, and it's absolutely important to me that all of the access to all of the good things, all of the bad things, that they have an ability to stand on their own 2 feet going forward and to prosper. That is a motivator for me. I want the best for that. I think that we have been successful. Our family has been in Idaho since the 1870s, and because of the resource that is here and the access to the asset called Idaho, all responsibly, that has helped. That has put us where we are. And call me old-fashioned, but I think you got to give back. We're much. Because I've been given much, I've got to give. And that is that's a foundational principle in my thinking. Yeah. Warped, I guess, sometimes as it is. But it's not Pollyanna. It's just a good way for everybody to live together. And when we all do that, and we're all doing our part in our sphere within our portfolio of talents, things kind of turn out okay here, and we got to respect each other. We got to respect property rights. We, what I've got is where my rights stop and where yours start. We got to honor that line, because Robert Frost said, good fences make good neighbors. And so that always, so as we do this, not only in physical boundaries, but also in social boundaries, good manners, getting along. There's a boundary out there. As long as I stay on my side of the line and I know where mine stops and yours starts, not only physically, but also in the more, intangible type things, then we get along better. Because we honor, property owners, farmers that honor that line, neighbors that honor that line, get along. But if you don't honor that line, you start not getting along. And that line is not just a line for property. It extends in all of our relations. And when we honor that line, we get along. And that's, again, that seems to be self-evident to me. But maybe it is, maybe it isn't. You'll always find me working. You will always find me trying to make it a little bit better. I've got great expertise in the all the natural resource part of the world, including water, energy. That's a new area for our state. I think we need to forge relationships with Utah and Wyoming and Idaho, and those three states pulling in the same direction in the energy sector can transform what energy transmission, generation, et cetera, looks like in the West. I think that, and then there's another issue that has kind of cropped up, and it's cropped up more than I want to see, is this financial fraud that is being perpetrated on our seniors. That is way more prevalent, I've come to learn, than I ever wanted to admit or was aware of. I think we can do better on that. When the technology exists to get a longtime parishioner at what looks like to be a correspondence from a trusted ecclesiastical leader, and get them, and then several $1,000s later, they realize that they've been taken and that it was all, but as I looked into that is a very common tactic, is that we're able to, in this day and age, deceive.
Right. You can falsely portray yourself as a person very easily.
Yeah.
Very easily.
And that's happening, and it's all to get money out of the innocent's pocket and into the not so innocent's pocket. Right. And I think that government does things that we can't do for ourselves. And I think there is a role to elevate that issue, that and other issues.
Yeah.
And because we're better than that.
Yeah, I very unfortunately have had experiences with my loved ones in those types of situations.
Everybody I've talked to knows of something like this.
And if it hasn't happened yet,
and I've deleted a whole bunch of texts from people that have come into money, and I can or Nigerian princes or whatever it is.
Just give me your bank account, direct deposit.
Yeah, and and those are the extremes, and those are the absurd examples. But there's a lot more, way more sophisticated, way more subtle than that, and it's all designed to steal. And I think we can do better there. But like I say, I'll never quit working on water, energy, infrastructure. Those are the things that where government needs to be and prosper. These are collective issues that we've got to do together, and we've got to buckle down and do that and never get behind. Sometimes we think, that this generation can coast because we can live on the infrastructure investments of the last generation. That's flawed thinking, and that will eventually catch up to us. That'll create a gap, and then you are playing catch up.
Right.
So,
well, Lieutenant Governor, I really appreciate you making the time here today. And again, I have a multitude of questions spanning all.
I guess we're going to have to do it again then.
We're going to have to do it again. Again, I know you squeezed me in the last minute. Thank you for coming in today. Thank you for what you've done for Idaho, and hopefully the campaign works out well for you.
Well, I have full confidence that it will, and we'll be out statewide, talking, telling our story,
right?
But also trying to paint a vision of where we all want to go, to articulate where all of us want to go. Sometimes we have a hard time articulating that, and that's the challenge to the elected officials, is to have a vision and not just try to get some political advantage, as you said earlier, Justine, who can be, quote, the most conservative.
Yeah, I'm going to out conservative you.
I think we all should be about out policying. Is that a verb?
I don't know. We just made it one day. It's good. I'm with you.
We ought to all be out making good policy and trying to have better policy that touches more bases and that eliminates the stress and the conflict in the policymaking process. We know how to do this. We are all successful in certain systems that we participate in with other human beings. We know what it takes, except for when we get into a larger scale politics, we think we can revert back to the law of the jungle in many ways. And that's not good policy.
No.
Anyway.
So yeah,
that's what makes me tick. And I guess as long as I can, well, I got gas in my tank, so I'll be driving.
Awesome. Thank you for coming in. And again, we'll do it again.
All right.
Thank you.
Sounds good.